I just love the whole vibe of it, how like it sounds fresh and current, and it was an all around great cover. Welcome back to another episode of the Suga Crave Show. This week has been amazing for me. Smiles out, just years of making that track and finally be able to release it and its final touch, and all the hard work from everybody. Shout out to Dan, AMELIA, Bailey, and just even just everybody that's been supporting it. I just thank you so much for it. And I actually sat down with AMELIA and we just talked about the track, just talked about the just life in general, even part of the session. So here's a little treat for you guys. AMELIA, I'm so glad to get you on the show. How's everything? How's life? How's just being you? How's everything?
Wow, that's a lot of questions. So I'm doing good. I'm super excited to be on this interview with you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you.
Yeah, life is crazy. Life is COVID.
Yeah.
But I'm doing good. I'm super stoked about being able to, still work on projects and having released Smile. I'm super stoked about that.
Yeah, no, I'm super pumped about Smile. Smile, I feel like, let's go back for a little bit so people don't know how we met. It was really cool. Tori, my manager, I was pitching this idea of a song, Smile. 2 years ago, Bailey wrote it, and he was originally supposed to be on it, but never got an opportunity. He got signed, so unfortunately he couldn't jump on. But, I was pitching this idea to Tori, and she was like, "Hey, I got this perfect girl. I saw her at this event that was catering.
Yeah.
Maybe let me pitch her idea of it." And so just take it away from there. Once you first heard the song, what was your thoughts, and what was what you were trying to imagine for the track?
Yeah. So, this project was a year in the making, because when I first met Tori, it was at a private event that I was playing. And that was last Christmas. So this whole thing has been a year developing. Even after I met her, I didn't talk to you for it was a couple months until, I finally heard Smile for the first time. So I'm super picky about who I work with and what kind of projects I work on. And when she first showed me the track, I've never done any collaborating with what kind of artist do you consider yourself? EDM, electronic?
I would say dance. I would say dance music. Yeah, dance music. You know what I mean? It's all EDM basically.
Right. So I've never collaborated with that, type of genre before, and I love it. So when I first heard the track, I was like, this is going to be so fun. It's a really good song. The demo that I heard had a guy singing on it. I don't know if it was Bailey or...
Yeah, that was Bailey.
Okay. And it was really good. And I just thought, I totally hear a female voice singing this song. And so I remember I listened to it a couple times. She shared the file with me. And I was kind of hooked from the first time that I heard it. I was like, I can totally hear myself on this. I think this would be super fun. I've never done EDM, collabs before. So it'd be fun just to branch out and do music that's not a melancholy folk song.
Yeah.
Basically. It'd be fun to do a happy song, a happy project. And I'm super happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Honestly, I was super pumped. Even the first day at the studio, you'll see.
Fun.
It was so much fun. Just just the vibe and stuff. It was really cool just to see you work. You're very professional. You're very fast. You're very, you're very precise. And also, I just love that you give so many variations. I told you before, with the whole these ad-libs and all that you hear on the background, there was so much of it that a friend of mine was like, you have too much of this, so you have to find which ones work. And she's like, these are the greatest. And I was just like, I was so pumped that I had so much.
Yeah.
resources to use to make the track better. So no, I think you killed it. You absolutely killed it. It was just like it took it from being a bit, a great track with Bailey to like a phenomenal it just blends so well. So I
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
was a super fun process. I agree on the studio part. That was so fun, and I think it gave me a chance to experiment in ways that I don't normally have to. Like with the type of songs that I write, it's not necessarily the type of song that would call for like, okay, do like a run, like do 3 different kinds of runs. Okay, we need to fill this part with like some kind of ad lib. That's not what I normally do, but I love doing that stuff. I just don't write that kind of music. So it's super fun being able to kind of just let loose and experiment. I felt like it was a very experimental process because you gave me a lot of, free reign to kind of just take it and run with it, which I really appreciate. And yeah, I think we had a really good dynamic in the studio. It was really good vibes, as they say.
Yeah.
But it felt like a space that I could just, I was free to explore. You let me do my thing, and we communicated really well. And obviously, I think it totally paid off. I mean, I think we made something really magical.
I think so too. I think it pushes the boundaries from, just normal dance music. I feel like it's not a typical dance track that, what I mean? And that's one question I want to ask you. Do you feel sometimes like the music that you make now, like, I know you're going back before that you don't really get those opportunities and stuff with your music. Does it kind of like bum you out when you can't put those elements into your songs? Like, how do you work that?
Well, I think for the music that I write, I don't really feel like I need to do that kind of, those kind of like the fancy stuff that I enjoy doing just for funsies. So no, I think I found my rhythm. Like with my own music, I'm super happy like with the genre that I'm in and the style that I'm in. And I think what's cool about collaborating is, just because you can do all of these different stylistic things, just because you have the capability of like singing different genre styles doesn't mean that you should do all of it and try to fit all of that within your artist brand, So what's cool about collaborating is it gives me a chance to branch out and do the fun stuff that kind of doesn't fit what I do. And that was, really cool to do that with you, because I don't feel the need to do that with my music. I don't really want to do that I wouldn't want to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. I like, the kind of the pocket that I'm in. But when I get to collaborate with a country artist, like I love, I don't really love country music, but the folk style of singing.
Yeah.
When Avicii did Hey Brother with Dan Tyminski, I think it was Dan Tyminski. I forget who it was, but he collabed with a straight up folk artist, like with Avicii, and it was so cool. So when there's those crossovers, I love that. Doesn't mean that, whoever it was that was featured on Avicii's track should be doing that all the time, but it's cool to cross over into like different genres. So I love any chance that I can get to work with artists that I really like that are in different genres, like EDM or like country or straight pop type of stuff. It's super, super fun for me.
No, I think it's smart because then your fan base is like you bring loyalty to your fan base. You're like, oh, she's still making this kind of music, but she's also dabbling. I think that's really smart. Now thinking about it, I think that's one thing I would say that's so great about being a producer. You can do anything you want. You have that freedom and stuff. And I would hate like for me, but it's also you got to pick a niche. So you have to pick a niche, but also be able to explore if you can.
Yes, and I think the sharing, like the collaborative aspect of sharing audiences is super awesome. Like my people and your people probably would never really connect, but when we collab on something, it's like, oh, my people are like, oh my gosh, like Amelia just did something totally different than what she normally does. this is super cool. And your people are like, whoa, like who's this female singer that he's got on his track, you know? And then we kind of share audiences, which is good for both of us. Like everybody benefits from that. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to be in your seat of like being a producer. You have the freedom to like do whatever you want and like connect people from across the genres to work on, you know, one project that kind of brings all these different elements together.
That's what I love. You hit it on the head. I love projects like this because it brings someone like you know, you and your genre to my world and see what can I do to melt everything together. A little bit of everything, a little bit of something, you know, from your world to bring into mine to see what it melts. And these are like my favorite moments and stuff. Like when you were growing up, you know, developing your musical, you know, taste and what field you want to go to. Like, was it when you first started? Were you in the choir? Were you like collabing with other people? Like, how did you start when you were doing your whole music career?
Yeah. Well, I was born in a really small town in the Midwest, and I was actually homeschooled. So the opportunities that I had musically looked a little bit different than I feel like the average kid who grows up, you know, in a school doing choir, doing theater, all that kind of stuff. The only formal instruction that I got was actually piano instruction. I was classically trained for 10 years, but I never took like a formal voice lesson in my life. I just grew up singing in a super musical family. So the path that I kind of took was, I feel like, a little bit different because music was what all of my siblings did. And so like I would literally be playing with Legos underneath the piano while one of my older siblings like practiced their classical pieces. And so the mindset growing up was like, this is just what you do, I guess. Like you grow up and you play music. And so kind of being in that environment, it was super organic, which I really appreciate. It wasn't like, okay, like I have to take this music class because I have to, or, you know, my parents are forcing me to do choir to be productive. But it was all organic and in the home. And it was really born out of like a true love for music. Like I'm a third generation musician. My great grandfather was a mariachi band leader and composer.
Really?
Yeah, I know. No, I'm a quarter Mexican. My grandfather is 100% full.
Oh wow,
Mexican. So
that's crazy. I didn't know that about you.
I know, right? It's super rare. You can't tell. I like have blue eyes and like I'm super pale. But there's music on both sides of my family. Both grandparents had family bands to some extent, and my mom has a gorgeous voice. One of my sisters was trained opera.
Oh wow.
One of my brothers was a classical guitarist. I have 5 siblings, so if I keep talking about my siblings, there's that many.
That is crazy. So you all are musically talented. Did you guys ever want to do? Do you guys ever want to do like a collab together? I don't know. This sounds so weird, but like a family.
No. You know, at this point, like I'm the only one that actually stuck with doing music in any kind of capacity. So, you know, 2 of my brothers are physicists now. One is an engineer, one is a teacher. Like I'm the only one that's still an artist, and we're kind of all spread out over the country right now. So it'd be hard to collab, but yeah, I mean, one of my brothers is like a jazz musician too. So I was exposed to a lot growing up. And I actually didn't start writing my own stuff until I was like 15. For the most part, up until then, from when I was like 3, I started first learning piano, and then 7, I started taking classical lessons. It was very much like just doing classical music and just learning the foundations. And it was definitely a little bit more strict. But when I hit my teens and you hit the, you know, like the emo phase where you just need an outlet and the world is ending on the daily and you're depressed, that's when I was like, you know, I also wrote a lot of poetry, just like creative writing. And so I was like, what if I like turn this poem into a song? And so I taught myself guitar using like a hand-me-down guitar from my brother. And the first thing that I learned was flat picking and folk, because being in the Midwest, like I grew up listening to people like Alison Krauss and a lot of different folk artists, Leanne Rhymes, like old classic, well, she's not old, pardon me, Leanne, but like, you know, more classic folk country stuff. And so I started writing my own music, and I honestly never planned on like doing music as a career. It was always just like something that I did. But then when I moved to Phoenix, where I live now, I went to an open mic night at this little like dive bar, and I sang an original song that I wrote on guitar. And I mean, I grew up performing, but not in like bars or like venues. I grew up performing for like a lot of retirement centers and nursing homes, like the cute little kids that go and do the Christmas shows type of thing. So I was in this bar and I was playing an original, and like it was like a busy restaurant, and it kind of just went dead. And I was like, what's happening? Everyone just watching and listening. And I got off the stage and people like lost their minds. And it was kind of the moment that I realized like, oh, like people actually want to hear me. Like I could actually perform. And then one open mic night led to the next. And then I started performing gigs and doing like coffee shop and sandwich shops. And then now I do like resorts and private clubs and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of worked it like, or it was super organic, but I don't know. It was all just born out of like a super organic love for and environment, you know, being in an environment of just music and love and creativity and togetherness. And it's, I think, one of the best ways to do it.
It's phenomenal just hearing how you guys, you start with the fundamentals. Basically your parents train you. It's like, hey, you got to know, the Mozarts, you got to know all the boring shit. And then you come from going from a dive bar to where you're at now, to being a great performer. Like honestly, you're hands down. I love seeing you perform. I keep watching that one video of American Idol of you playing that piano, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Amelia. I love it. Honestly, I loved you on American Idol. I wish they picked you as number one. It's bullshit. I think they don't know anything over there. I loved you. I think you were the best act on American Idol. And just go through that. Just going through that whole experience from like entering, from the beginning to where where you were at top 40.
Yeah. Well, like I said about growing up being super organic, I wasn't a competition kid. I wasn't a talent. I never did a freaking talent show in my life. Like I didn't go to school, so there were no school talent shows. So I was not in that world at all. So I decided to do American Idol last year. I grew up watching it. I feel like everyone kind of grows up watching it. But my friend Wade Coda did it 2 years ago, and he made it. I think he was top 6. I think he was the 6th place. And so being able to watch the experience kind of from like a behind the scenes perspective, because like I would go over to his house and like I'd be able to talk to him about it, and I saw the opportunities that he got from it. And like I'm not the competition kid type. There are some kids who are like, that's their version of gigging, is they go from show to show and audition to audition. They're also on TV shows. They're also modeling, and that's like their world. And so I kind of just assumed that, it wasn't gonna be my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And it had its challenges, but like I decided to audition and got the golden ticket, went to Hollywood. Hollywood Week was super intense. I played an original in one of the rounds, which was super cool to be able to play an original song and knowing that like my lyrics and my melody and my song was being heard by Katy Perry and Luke Bryan and Lionel Richie, and like to be able to share that with them I'll never forget. Like I couldn't stop crying. It was so inspiring. And then I made it through Hollywood Week, and the top 40 went to Hawaii to the Disney Aulani Resort, and we did a performance on the beach for over 1,500 people, which was super fun. It was
Wow.
outdoors in freaking Hawaii under the stars on a stage on the beach. Super cool. And it was just so cool to be able to experience a different side of the music industry, because it's definitely, it's a talent show, but it's also a TV show. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot more elements to consider besides, is this person talented? It's also like, is this someone that's going to bring in more views to our TV show? Is this someone that has a story? Is this someone that, like whatever their protocol is, it's more than just, are they talented? Because honestly, a lot of talented kids got cut before the top 40 that I think really deserve to be there. But that's the TV world's element. So that was a little bit tricky, because I had to keep in mind, like, this is more than just about music. It's also about the TV and the reality TV industry. And so that was just like I'm really glad I did it. It was a great experience. And then, so I made it as far as the top 40, which was super cool. And, I made some really good friends. There's a lot of talented kids that do this. And so I've been able to make some, I think, lifelong connections.
I think so. That would help
show.
you. I think that would help you in the near future too. When when they see you, like,
Definitely.
like, oh my God, Amelia, I remember her in American Idol. She'd probably be great for this one track. I think, you didn't hit number one, but I think the whole experience and then the connection with other people
For
and
sure.
I think that's everlasting. I think I think that would probably help you more than winning, because not to dock on American Idol, but you always see people winning it, being top one, and I don't hear them from anywhere.
I know.
They get
like,
signed
you
from
never
these
hear from some of these people. Yes.
none, and it's
Yeah.
like either they sign them and then they just put them on the shelf and be like, hey, is this
Right?
like, that's what pisses me
I
off
know.
about the industry about that, is sometimes they
For
have
sure.
the
Me
big
too.
balls and they're just like, you know what, man, let me buy out this person and shelve them because
Yep.
they sound too familiar, like one of our artists. So let's shelve them.
Yep.
We'll give them 100,000. We'll shelve
Right.
you, and you won't be able to
Yeah.
release music at all underneath your name. And I think that's bullshit. I think that's why it's so great. I think we have the ball in the court right now in this industry,
Yeah.
because it's like record labels, they just want to sign people, and most people don't want to sign. They can go on TikTok and get all these 100
Yeah.
million plays through one video. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it was best.
There's so
for
many
you.
ways to be successful. There's so many ways to be successful. I feel like the way that it used to work was you had to get signed to be successful, the way that the record companies used to work. But I mean, nowadays there are so many different avenues that you can be a super successful touring artist and have, make a great living traveling and performing and booking out venues without a huge label, because you do run the risk of, getting locked into a contract that has some stipulations that maybe you didn't see and you signed on to, and now it's like, oh crap, like I can't break this contract, or I can't sign on with anybody else for the next 7 years, and yet maybe these projects aren't moving forward, so you're stuck for 7 years. Like that to me is like where it gets scary, and I'm definitely wary of like what kind of contracts I sign. And thankfully American Idol is super good about making sure that you feel comfortable and you know what you're doing and you know what you're signing. And a lot of people have had great experiences who haven't made the first place. In fact, sometimes it's like they made the top 40 and then they got huge, famous. Some people got cut early, and then like Maren Morris, who's like, I think one of the number one female country artists, she got cut super early on, and then she went and hit it big, and is on the radio. So
See, that's like the perfect example.
There's so many avenues.
Yeah, it's nice because then you just have so many. You can always go to the label. You know what I mean? There's nothing fully bad about the label, because they do have that, those connections that you might not be able to, but it's, I feel like it's just safer just to be by yourself. And you know what I mean? Especially you have that avenue, you have that live performance. Talk to me about when COVID hit. What was your thoughts, going through your head when all that stuff was happening. Live events were just, you know, getting shut down, and you know, especially like little small events. What was going through your mind when you were like trying to, you know, figure out something to do?
Sheer terror, panic, anxiety. I mean, like COVID shut down everything. COVID, at least where I live, like every single venue that I played at shut down for 6 months.
Wow.
And so the music community here was freaking out because now, like, what do you do? And then there were, I mean, for a while there, they had like the curfews and stuff. So like, you know, you had to be literally in your home for these specific hours. And it's like, okay, well, I have no income now and I have bills to pay. And like, it was super, super stressful, but thankfully, you know, with one of the positive aspects of social media is that, you know, you can do performances from your home. So that did force me to kind of familiarize myself with the world of online performing. And by no means am I an expert. There's so many platforms like Twitch and Periscope and all that stuff that I haven't gotten into yet. But just in the sense of like, okay, I can still perform. I can still set out a virtual tip jar. And I can still do what I do and just connect in a different way with people. So I definitely had to get creative. It was so stressful. Like I would never want to live through that again. I mean, I'm still recovering from the financial loss of being unemployed for 6 months. And I have a lot of my gigs back, thankfully, and I feel super safe with the protocols that are in place at these venues. But I had to get creative, and I released a song. So let's see, the timing was super awkward because I got back from American Idol in early March, and I had all these plans of, you know, doing watch parties and performances because I got back from filming, but it hadn't started airing yet.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it had, but like the top 40 segment hadn't started airing. So I had all these plans of like, I'm going to do a watch party at this restaurant, and, you know, I'm going to do a live performance, and then we'll all watch American Idol together. And, you know, suddenly places are closing down, and I was about to release my first, you know, fully produced, professionally produced single called What No One Says, March, I think, 28th. And I was going to do like a huge venue and a release party and have other artists, and it was going to be a big bash. And that got canceled. And so there were just so many roadblocks to, you know, kind of what I feel like was this crescendo of, you know, using the momentum from American Idol of like, hey, like Phoenix, I made top 40, here I am, let's do this stuff. I'm going to be doing this show here, all this stuff just got totally crushed and shut down. So I started doing some Facebook live streams, and honestly, like I was surprised at how well you can do on those things. Like I set out a virtual tip jar, and my first gig where I played for an hour and I made like 1,500.
Wow.
Which
That's
is
amazing.
just like who knew? Like if I would have known that sooner.
You're like, fuck this, I would have gone there. No, it's
like,
incredible.
Oh crap, this actually works. So
that tells you how
you know,
loyal your fan base is. They're like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like that's
honestly, it was crazy realizing like it doesn't take that many people watching to make a substantial amount of money. I mean, if you have like even 100, you know, fans, which for me, 100 alone is just like my freaking huge family. So like if you had like you know, even just friends and family watching, people pitch in 10, $15, like that's already like more than you'd make playing at a coffee shop or a dive bar, you know? So it was really funny, but like, I'm super thankful that I just decided to do that, because it's weird. I like performing when people are there, because there's like that exchange of energy and just
Yeah.
humans in the room. That's what I love to do, is connect in that way. And playing to a screen is just super awkward. No one claps or like talks to you after you stop performing, so you finish a song and it's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no one said
It's
anything,
an
but I'm
awkward
gonna say
silence.
thank you, because I'm used to saying thank you.
Let me
And
know in the
like, I don't know
chats
what
if you
to
guys like
say.
it. You know what I mean? It gets in these awkward states. I get it. That's why I was like, man, like DJing like in like live performances. I was just
Yes.
like, it's not the same as like when you see
It's not
people
the
around
same.
you. It's not. It's awkward. You gotta be like, hey, give me a 1 on the chat if you think it was good. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
why do you need
Right.
validation from people in the
Yeah.
chat? But I think it's awesome. So when you first did that whole event, you know, on live, like, did it make you think like, hey, I should probably start doing this more?
Yeah, it did. And I think the biggest thing that prevented me from doing like a weekly live stream was that age old artist dilemma of comparison. So everybody here started doing live streams, and everyone had like a really good setup. Like, they had the really good mics, and they obviously
Hmm.
had like an actual like semi recording studio set up on their end, and professional lights. And like, I was like broke because of the pandemic. So I'm like, I can't drop $500 on buying a ring light, a microphone, an interface, like the right program, like all that kind of stuff. And so it was basically like, I think I discouraged myself out of it, because it was just me and my freaking cell phone. And you're like tilting it up in the right spot,
Yeah.
like sound check, like, is this phone microphone capturing my voice? It
This-
sounds super crappy, and only like your aunts and uncles are watching. So yes, I actually want to continue to do that. I'm working on getting like a basic home studio set up at my place right now. Because it is important, especially with how social media works. Like, fortunately and unfortunately, you kind of have to have a presence on there. And
yeah.
I'm all about the live stuff. So like, you look at my follower count, you look at how much I never post live music, and it's like, oh, like, she's not doing that much. But like, I'm gigging 5 nights a week. I have a local following. I make a living doing this, and no one knows on the internet world. So it is weird, and I realize that I need to like have more of a internet presence and content, but it's kind of just, I'm adjusting, because it requires a different setup. It requires a different know-how. Like, I'm gonna have to learn how to do that whole world.
Yeah, you mean especially if you don't have like the whole technical standpoint, which I think you still do. You have,
Not a technical mind. I don't know the gear. I don't know the equipment. I mean, I'm down to learn, and I will, but I'm just a freaking like artist performer.
Yeah, you whenever you need the mic and you have the keys and you have the guitar, you're like, you know what you're doing. But it's like the whole technical.
Right.
I know. It's hard. It's hard. Honestly, it's even technical people have technical issues. You know what I mean? So it's like having somebody that has no knowledge of it is just like, it could be rough. And honestly, I've done better on live shows when I'm on my phone. Shit you not.
Really?
On Facebook too. I don't know. It's so weird. I was showing a remix that I did, and I was on my phone because my laptop, it just was malfunctioning. It just wasn't letting me do it. So I got on the phone, and it was just more organic, more reach, and it was just weird because it was off the phone. It sounded shitty, but people got to see what was happening. So honestly, like, if you want, I think you could still do it on the phone till you start learning the whole technical side. Never stop. I love it because like, I feel like this works so well because people are like, oh my God, Amelia is performing live. I've never, it's maybe some people that are your fans that never got to see you do this. You know what I mean? Since you don't post rarely on Instagram. And I think it's smart because then you just keep people on toes and just waiting to when you do post. So when you go live, people are like, oh my God, finally.
Spin on it.
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you for putting a positive spin on my laziness.
No, I don't blame you because I'm the same way. I fucking hate Instagram. I hate posting pictures and stuff like that. It's like, if there's no
Yeah.
quality, you know what I mean? Don't post like you have to post. You know what I mean? Post that meaningful shit. Like, especially like, I feel like it'd be great for you to, you know, talk about your experience with COVID and just have a video and post it up there and stuff. Cause like
and
this,
that's like my worst nightmare.
it's hard.
Like, that's not artists. We are our own worst enemy. I
yes.
swear. Like, we talk ourselves off the ledge of all of these things that we should just be doing, regardless of whether we have the perfect setup or the perfect situation. We are our own worst enemy.
Yeah, we're our worst critics. We always we're the first ones to be like, oh man, that sounded like shit. Let me do it again.
Right. It's like, yeah, I've recorded 80 songs, but I haven't released any of them. It's like, that's so common to hear. Like, yeah, I have a bunch of songs, but I just don't release them. Well, why? Because I'm working on new stuff, but I don't think the old stuff is good. And it's like, well, that's why no one knows who you are, because no one has anything to listen to. I'm talking about myself here.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I'm like, who are you talking? I'm like, does it sound frustrating? Like when you do, meet somebody like that, you're like, oh my god, you're so fucking talented. I feel like you could, release this music.
Release it.
And is that now you saying that's who you're talking to yourself? So you feel that way about you? Like, are there some songs that you wish you can release, but just mentally is just like you feel like it's not perfect?
Yep. So I feel like there are songs that, like, when you've recorded them a couple years ago, it doesn't feel relevant to who you are anymore, and so you're not as motivated to release them, or you almost don't want to release them. So like I'm sitting on 2 songs currently that I wrote 5 years ago. I recorded a year or 2 ago, and my mentality is like, well, I'm writing all this new stuff now. Like, I should just be releasing the new stuff. And it's like, okay, but if that's your mentality, then you're never actually going to release anything. And people want to follow along with your journey. Like, my favorite artists, I'll scroll back to their very first EP, and that's like my favorite, and then their newer stuff is like, it's good. But like, some of my favorite artists are like their first 2 albums. And I could have that mentality of like just releasing as I go and release it, even if it's old. People are going to, appreciate it. People just want to have something to listen to. But it's hard because, I don't know, I think with the 2 songs that I'm sitting on, it's like, oh, like my voice sounded so different. Like I sounded so much younger. Oh, it's more plain folky rather than like what I'm doing now. It's like, oh, I don't know. It doesn't feel relevant. But I just need to release it. I just need to release it, because otherwise there's going to be no progression of your journey as an artist on Spotify or iTunes. It's not going to be out there. It's just going to be that one song that you love, but you only record it once a year. That's like, oh, here's one track that I'm happy with. And it's like, okay, but that only happens like once a year. What about all the other stuff that you have? Like, just release it.
I think I think you should listen to yourself. I think you should release it. One documentary, I don't know if you watched this. I just recently watched this. Is the what's his name? Garth Brooks documentary on Netflix.
I've heard about it. Is it good?
Fantastic. I think he's a cheesy guy. I respect him as an artist. He's a very cheesy guy. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get his character, but I love it all in all. Just seeing how he started, how he was dedicated to, where he was working with different artists. And right now that he's like working, he can sing pretty much anything he wants. Like, he is really good at like folk. He's really good at blues. He's like, his country was his bread and butter, but he was so versatile, but he wasn't afraid to, push the limits, of country music. Especially one of his tracks, he was talking about, loving everybody. And it doesn't matter if you're, Black, Asian, or, even a male, female, love who you want. And at the time, country music was like, no, we're very conservative.
That's a radical idea for the country music culture.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, this guy's he had balls at that time when he was up there, and he was just like, fuck this is what I believe in. And, what if, what if he had that, insecurity, but just be like, nah, I don't think they would like it. So what I'm telling telling you and myself, it's like, I think we got to drop just because it's the evolution of ourselves musically. Because people are going to look back and that one track, let's say you want to release it, people are going to be like, oh my God, Amelia from here to where she is now. It's just incredible. It's incredible evolution. Maybe some people will love that one song, be like, hey, I love that better than she's doing stuff currently. But it's still something that you get, some content, some value, some, you know what I mean? Because honestly, I love all your tracks. That's why I respect you as an artist, because even though you are going through the same genre, there's like a little bit of ear candy on each track that makes it different from the other. It does it does mix well to, you know, the whole album or the whole EP, but there's something about it that just it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't sound the same as the other track. There's some uniqueness, and
that's
you know,
cool.
Yeah, I think you should definitely release that track so I could put it on the playlist.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just glad that I got a chance to talk to you today and just, you know, just see. That's why I love sitting down in the studio. Like when we had that conversation in the studio prior to our, you know, session, I think that was my favorite moment because I got to like, I was able to know who you really were, you know, who was Amelia behind the mic and stuff. And so I love these conversations like this, just finding out like you're a fourth of, you know, Mexican and stuff. And just like, you know
random,
what I mean?
Right?
Crazy. So, you know what I mean? Thank you so much for jumping on, Amelia. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And you think you got something like in the future, any plugs, anything any songs that you're releasing soon?
Yes. So I don't have a date set in stone yet, but in November, I'm releasing my next single. It's called Cigarettes.
Like it.
Yeah. And there's going to be like a studio session video, almost like, you know how people like make a music video out of the studio session where it's like the acoustic session. So it's going to be like that. So the song will be released with a studio session music video, and then I'm gonna have a Christmas song releasing this year. I'm not gonna tell you guys what it is, but it's gonna be super cool. So yeah, got a couple projects on my sleeve, but the next one is gonna be Cigarettes in November.
What's the meaning behind cigarettes? Were you addicted to cigarettes or?
Right? No, I don't smoke just because of my career.
Yeah.
but the first line is cigarettes in the console. I keep them for my friends. I've lost touch with some good ones, but all good things come to an end. So I used to keep cigarettes in my car because I have a lot of friends who smoke, and I would hang out with them on their smoke breaks. And when you have friends that smoke, you just have to have cigarettes because they're always bumming off of you. So, so I used to keep cigarettes in my car, and I didn't, I mean, occasionally I'd smoke, but I didn't really. And it was just, it's a song about the really transitional part of my life of starting to play music full time. And, you know, I moved across Phoenix from kind of like a smaller neighborhood to more downtown where there's more going on, and I just invested in more opportunities. And so the song is kind of just about like that transitional phase of like, I'm stepping into a new chapter. I'm, you know, taking bigger risks, and I'm playing, you know, better gigs, and I'm gaining confidence. And, you know, whenever you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And so there's loss that comes with change, and you know, some connections that you have kind of fade out as you get busy or you pursue other avenues. And so it's kind of, the song is a reflection on the process of moving forward in your career and kind of the emotions that go along with that.
No, I love it. I feel like a lot of people will be able to reflect on that and be like, you know, I think, you know, I'm probably going through that. And that's what's so beauty about music is people can relate a lot and stuff. So, all right, Amelia, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much for having me. Catch you later.
See ya. Amelia's great, guys. She's just an all-around good person, and she's just fantastic. So go check her out. She's got more music on Spotify. This week on the Spotlight, we got Isaiah Tilson for his cover of Fly Me to the Moon. Check it out.
In other words, please be true. words, I love you. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. Oh, fill my heart with song. Let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
I say this all the time, guys. I'm a big fan of Frank Sinatra. I just love all his music. So when I came across Isaiah's profile and I saw his cover, I was just like amazed because it was just his version of it. It was like a modern jazz and just very kind of even he made it even darker, which was really interesting. I just love the whole vibe of it, how like it sounds fresh and current, and it was an all around great cover. So the theme of this week is kind of surrounding of, you know, my release of Smile. Since Smile is kind of like electronic, but not like traditional dance music, it's more electronic pop. So that's the kind of theme I went around it with for the playlist this week. You know, seeking out, you know, pop artists that are pushing the limits of, you know, pop. And honestly, this week I just found so many good singers and just producers and stuff. So I think you guys are gonna like it. Coming in number 3 is going to be a remix by Los Atlas of a track called Rose. I just love the balance of this track from the beginning of just being very gentle from, you know, from Ashley's vocals to getting to the drop and just so much energy, so much. It just feels like you're in a wind tunnel of just enjoyment and just like high energy. It was, you know, it's a fantastic remix. Coming in number 2 is going to be Ocean of Confusion by Amber Carly Williams. Breaking down the root of this track, I love the beat. You know, it's kind of funny because, you know, it's called Ocean of Confusion, and the beat feels like you're in the ocean. Definitely wave-like, and I can resemble that because I try to implement that in my music. So I instantly connected with this track. And then the vocals of Amber is just, you know, it's so dreamy. It's just like glistening on top, and I just love the effects that she did for her background vocals. It just melt everything together and just all around a really fantastic track. Coming in number 1 is going to be Never Stood a Chance by KAKI. I love the elements of this whole track. First of all, the guitar riff in the beginning is so dope. How catchy it is, especially with her vocals just leading the melody of it. It's an awesome track that you can hum all day long. It's very great. Honestly, I just love the whole production of it, and it just catches your ear really quickly. That was my top 3 tracks on the Suga Crave playlist. Make sure you follow the playlist on Spotify so you can get updated from brand new tracks that come up there. Each week I try to do different themes. So, you know, one week will be R&B, some weeks will be more dance music. So it just depends. Just depends on different weeks. And lastly, thank you guys so much for showing so much support around the show with my music, you know, especially Smile that came out. I'm very blessed. Thank you so much, everybody that's been involved around it, and everybody that's been supporting it. I really, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you so much for doing that. And Smile's out. Go check it out. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. So make sure you stream it, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
For